Okay, shalom. Chag Sameach again. This is a chapter summary of chapter 27. This one is called Palm Sunday and 6 days before Passover. So I just wanted to correct what I said earlier in the previous video regarding this. I was mistaken. Passover is always on the 14th. This is the 14th, not the 15th. This is the 14th, that's the 15th. That's the 16th, that's the 17th, that's the 18th day. So the Sunday was the 18th day, not the 19th. And also where it said in Luke 24, 21. Sorry, Luke 24, 21. Or the word today, where it says today, it actually isn't today. It's better translated as that is just past. It's not saying this is the third day today. It's saying that is just past. It's better translated that way. "3 days have now passed," is what it was saying, not today. So with that new understanding, if I could just go over that really quick and just read how that would be understood, knowing that the word today is actually better translated as has now passed. That is just past. Yeah, that is just past is the better way to understand day, based on the Greek word for seimaran. So in Luke 21, or 24 rather, Luke 24, and verse 21 says here, second half of the verse says, "And besides all this, it is now 3 days. 3 days have passed, and 3 days have passed since after these things have occurred." 3 days have passed after these things occurred. So that's the better way to understand that verse. So going on to this chapter, it actually opens with that. And this is looking at the timeline of the 6 days before Passover. So if you look at the timeline of events, you have to rewind 6 days leading up to the 14th. And there's actual proof in the Gospels to back up what is presented here. It's all in the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John, chapter 12. It says, 6 days before the Passover, Yeshua came to Bethany, where Lazarus, who had been dead, they made him a supper. So that's 6 days before, meaning the Passover was the 14th. Then that's now the 8th, isn't it? The 8th or the 9th. Let's just look at John 12. Again, I wanted to use my phone, but it's been acting up, so I'm just going to have to do the rest from a live stream. So 12, first one, let's see what it says here. Yeah, 6 days before the Passover. So he came to Bethany. 6 days before, okay. So if Wednesday is day 1, Tuesday would be day 2, Monday is day 3, Sunday is 4 days before, Saturday is 5 days before. The 6 days before the Passover would be Friday. So you go all the way back. 1, 2, 3. Oh, hold on. Does this count? 1. Let's look at this again. Wednesday is day 1. Okay, this is 1 day, 2 days. 3 is Monday. 4, 5, and that's 6. And then it says here, Mary had made Yeshua a supper. John 12, 3, 8. Mary took a pound of spikenard of great value. So he came to their house, Yeshua did, and they prepared a meal. The 6th day had passed. So this is now the 10th day, day 2. And they're now into the Shabbat, Friday evening. And then John tells us of the crowd that pressed in to see Yeshua and Eleazar, Lazarus. Verse 9, great numbers of the Jews found Yeshua at Bethany. So this is following. This was not at supper time. It had to have been on Shabbat the very next day. So there's a point that is brought out here that almost everyone misses. This Shabbat day when Yeshua was brought into the home of Lazarus, including the multitude that came on the daytime of this Shabbat, this was all on the 10th day of the month, when the Israelites were commanded to select lambs and bring them into their homes. And this is exactly what Mary, Martha, and Lazarus had done, whether they knew it or not. And then the crowd arrived on the following day, or the same day, Shabbat, and they all looked for him to ask him questions and examine him. And then we look at the following day, which is now Sunday, the 11th. And on verse 12, it says, on the following day, great numbers of people had come to the festival, hearing that Yeshua was on his way to Jerusalem. So this is known as Palm Sunday, but it's the 11th of the first month. Okay, and the following day, in Mark 11, verses 12 to 19, talks about the following day after that. That Sunday is now Monday, the 12th. That's where he looked at he cursed the fig tree. And then day 5 is the 13th of the month. It's Mark 11. In the morning, he passed by, saw the fig tree, and was dried up. That is day 5, the 13th of the month. And then you read about Yeshua leaving the temple and going to the Mount of Olives. That's Mark 13. That is now it says here, after 2 days, it was the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the Gospel of Mark goes on to say that in 2 days it will be Passover. and that was on Tuesday. So if you count 2 days from the Tuesday, the 13th, which makes it Thursday the 15th, which is that day. And then you read about the 14th of Nisan, of Abib, the first day, or first month, rather, is a Wednesday. And you can confirm that by going to Matthew 26, verses 17 to 22. So there's an important point here talking about Matthew 26. And some people use this account in Matthew 26 to justify keeping the Passover on the wrong day. Okay, let me read this. It's important to review, being as it is Passover. It is the first day of the feast and the Passover as well. This is the night where the destroying angel, or the destroyer, went through Egypt and killed all the firstborn of human and of beast, and Jehovah passed over those houses to protect them. Didn't pass through and kill them. It was the destroyer who killed them. He passed over the houses to prevent and put a limit, a boundary, because of that blood, which was the boundary that he had set, saying you cannot go in those houses, to the destroyer. Okay, representing the blood of Yeshua. Okay, let's start. Verse 17 says here, on the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came up to Yeshua, said to him, where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover? Or do you wish us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover? It says, he responded, go into the city to a certain man, say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover with my disciples at your house. The disciples did as Yehoshua directed them and prepared the Passover. In the evening, Yehoshua took his place with the 12 disciples, and while they're eating, he said, okay, so I think we'll stop there. So people justify, they use this verse, these verses to say, let's keep Passover on a different day. So it is now Tuesday when they were doing this. It is Tuesday at sunset. At sunset will be the beginning of this day, Wednesday, the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. So it's the 14th. Passover is still 2 days away from this day. So some include the preparation day of for the unleavened bread, for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They talk about this as 8 days, the 8 days of unleavened bread, or 8 days of Passover. But when you keep these days, you understand them a bit better. So let me see here. So when the evening came, And they sat down to eat the supper meal, but the disciples and Yoshua. This was not the Passover meal, as it was still one day away. This is the Passover. This is the night they had the Last Supper, right? Actually, this is the part of the night. It was not the Passover yet. That would be here. That would be about there. Right there between the evenings is Passover. So it was Tuesday evening after sunset, which is the start of the 14th, the day Yoshua was to be killed on the very same day. So we're going to look at the timeline, just summarize it now. So on the Tuesday evening is now the 14th, which ends with the lambs being slaughtered at 3 p.m. on the Wednesday afternoon, which is still the 14th, because the day begins in the evening and ends with sunset the following the day portion. So on Friday is the 9th day of the first month. Yoshua arrived at the house of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. The following day, the 10th of the first month, was Shabbat, which began on Friday sunset. Yoshua was examined by the people. The 11th of the month was a Sunday, where Yoshua did ride into Jerusalem. And as you saw in the picture, he was riding like the lady in the picture was doing, riding using a colt and the foal by its side. So some people are confused. How can he ride both at the same time? But the thing is, when you ride a donkey, you oftentimes would have to bring the foal with them because they haven't been weaned yet, possibly, very likely in that case. As well, sometimes you can also bring the foal, and you wouldn't ride a foal because they're too young, but you can put some luggage on there, some lighter items. Maybe they can carry a lighter load. But let's go back to that. So that was the 11th when he rode into Jerusalem on the donkey and the foal. Monday was the 12th day of the first month. Tuesday was then the 13th, where the disciples had their Last Supper, right there. Actually, it's confusing to have these. These actually should be shifted over. So, yeah, this is when they had the Last Supper, the 13th. This is the 13th. This is Tuesday, right there. And that's Wednesday. This should be shifted. I don't know. I should probably just adjust it myself. You know what? I'm going to do that right now. Let's do it live. Show my editing skills here. So I'm just gonna and then save it. Just gonna take that and like I said, this has to be shifted. Because this is that's the 13th. That's the 14th. That's fine. But this is really that way. That's why it's confusing. Okay, so that's the way it should look. and just clean it up a little bit. It's my little editing skills, my Microsoft Paint skills here. Put that over there, just make it nice and clean. And now I can save it. It's a little bit messy, but the point is it's better understood now. You look at it that way. Let me just clean that part up. I don't like that. So now it's better understood. So this is the 13th, right? They had their Last Supper right there, which was Tuesday. That was the 13th, because the day starts with the evening, and ends with the day at sunset. So that's when they had Tuesday the 13th, and then this is the night portion of Tuesday, which is actually the 14th, and that's the 14th Wednesday. So it makes better sense now that I've shifted it that way. So continuing on, so 14th was the Wednesday. This is when he was sacrificed, when he died. So Sunday was not the 10th day of the month, as some people like to think. It was actually the 11th of the month, and we proved it through looking at the gospel accounts. Rewinding 6 days, you can see the order of the events. It's important to do that, to look at the evidence, look at what scripture says, instead of just going by what tradition says. So many people believe, even today, that that Sunday was the 10th day, so therefore Yeshua was killed on a Thursday, because they're saying 6 days from then would be the 16th. They're saying he died on this day. So that's something else I want to correct, that I was thinking Catholics believe it's this day. It's actually, no, they believe he died on the Thursday. So that would mean 3 nights and 2 days, or 2.5 nights and 2 days, which doesn't fit the 3 days, 3 nights narrative. That needs to be, that's the criteria that Yeshua said. That's the only sign he gives about his messiahship. So the 14th is a Thursday. The description continues. So he didn't ride into Jerusalem on the 10th. It was the 11th. Yeshua, the Lamb of Elohim, went into the house of Eleazar, Lazarus, Martha, and Miriam, along with the 12 disciples. That was the Shabbat evening. It was the start of the 10th day. The 10th was a Shabbat. That was the day when the lambs were selected historically in ancient Israel. The next morning, which was still the 10th, still Shabbat, many Jews came to examine him and meet Eleazar, who he raised from the dead. Yeshua did. Then on Sunday, the 11th, Yeshua rode into Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, on the colt, as well as the foal. And you can see the picture on the thumbnail, how that would be done. Although the language, some people stumble on that. you can ride a donkey and the foal using that method where you ride the larger animal. Obviously, you don't want to be cruel to the baby, to the young one, and you just lead the other one. You tie them together. So he did ride both because he required both. That's just a grammar, technicality people stumble over, and they come up with ridiculous theories as to him riding both at the same time. That's just to explain that. So now we have covered the 6 days that John, the Gospel of John, spoke of, and now we have the proper understanding about that. 3 days and 3 nights chapter that we presented previously confirmed that Yoshua HaMashiach was crucified on the Wednesday, the 14th, right here, between the evenings. And then the road to Emmaus chapter, which we just did just a while ago, confirmed that Yoshua was crucified on the Wednesday, the 14th as well. And then the 6 days before Passover chapter, which is this one, confirms as well Yahushua was crucified on Wednesday, the 14th of the first month. So the reason that these things were examined, were inspected, were analyzed, is to show that the day Yahushua was killed was truly a Wednesday at 3 p.m., the 9th hour. We can now see if the year this took place was 14 days after a crescent moon, by which Tashur in the month. So that's what's coming up next. And we only have like 5 pages to go. So it's been really good doing this, and look forward to the next video. I'm going to eat something because I haven't eaten in over 24 hours. Just drink water. That's all I did. So I'm going to do that. So shalom, Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom. And may Jehovah bless you with his shalom and his protection in these times.